Miguelito, did you see the watery elephant running through this place right now?
Ay, Dios mío. How could I have missed it, Abuelita? I was caught up looking after a dinosaur porpoise surfing the sky.
Dinosaur purpose, huh? You're too good at this, my handsome young man. What would I do without you?
I don't know, Abuelita. I just don't know. Pero, mira. Look at those elephants who split into two twin teacups and bleed through a crown of thorns. Back into a mighty jaguar chasing little birds for fun.
¿Qué pasó, mijo? You're always so smart. Why would a mighty jaguar chase on somebody for fun?
Miguel!
Mountain lion can be a very difficult power totem to have because it places you in a position to be a target for the problems of others. You could be blamed for things going wrong or for always taking charge when others cannot. You could be the perfect justification for the insecurities of others. Mountain lion medicine involves lessons on the use of power in leadership. It is the ability to lead without insisting that others follow. It is the understanding that all beings are potential leaders in their own ways.
Because really, this was so many people made this happen. Jeffrey Fountain. And Will Rodriguez. And I think everybody here, for the most part, is familiar with Ashley Dawson. Some people, but not everybody, is familiar with our elder friend and brother, mentor, Norris Fortunato. Hailing from Monmouth County. Thank you. Hi, thank you, Joey, very much. Johnny, my bad. Thank you, Johnny. A lot of things going on. I met Norris through my dear friend, Two Clouds. At a powwow held by Chief Perry many years ago. So there's a lot of love in the room, and none of this on any level would have happened without Norris. From leading the prayer, it says on paper, carrying the fence for the set is a whole nother thing. So he really made it happen for us. Thank you, Norris. And there's another big thank you here. Which is, and I'm sure I'm forgetting all sorts of people also. Is Bill Batson still here? Hey, Bill. Bill has been a very consistent, true friend of this work, helping us out, spreading the word, letting everybody know we're here tonight. Bill, I'm wondering if you'd like to join us and help us moderating a little conversation.
There is a scene where the significance of the mountain lion is it's actually said out loud. And I think it's an important part of the story, but I'm not all that clear on it. I wonder if the person who wrote it, Brooklyn, if you would talk about the significance of the mountain lion and how it relates to the story and the characters.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Matthew. So, it's operating on a number of different levels. I think there are two that I'd like to briefly answer with. One of them is that, I think I see in the journey of the protagonist, Miguel, basically an incapacity for a healthy, fulfilling life within, the environment and social landscape that we are in today. And taking the pills allows for him to be, rock the boat less for those around him. And he also experiences a dulling of his senses, which I think he experiences as a sort of death or something other than life. And I think one of the really painful and true interpretations of what his grandmother says at the end is that, there is a being who loves life inside of him that wants to try to live in a healthy way without medication. And this film in no way is anti-medication or anything like that, which I also want to be very clear about. This is just this one person's story. And I guess zooming out a little bit, I think what it reveals is that a lot of the alienation and disconnect from the world and different relationships that he experiences, it gets very abstract at the end, for sure. What it is to me is after basically running amok socially and spiritually in his decisions, he collapses and sort of dies, but not in a literal way. And he receives a healing administered by a steward and caretaker of the land, which is in the film Medicine the Akashic, who's a council member of Norris's tribe, Sand-Hill Band, Lenape, and Cherokee Indians. And I think the idea there is that perhaps there is peace and healing to be found for people who experience the issues that Miguel experiences, just by virtue of, paying attention to good words spoken by people who have a sense of balance. So I think this is getting a little bit away from your question, but I think the whole film basically is setting the stage to hear the message of medicine.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow it up to hear what Norris has to say about that.
So one of the major inspirations behind the film would be the Amazonian jaguar medicine. And that culture, like indigenous American culture, some of the oldest and foundational principles in indigenous culture is what we call Olmec traditions, which dates back or goes back to some of the first civilizations in the Americas. And the jaguar is a principal deity that represents transformation. So you're born into the world with a jaguar twin. Obviously, each different territory has its own representation of these animals. Here, it would be equivalent to the mountain lion. So the mountain lion plays a role that kind of represents transformation and growth. And that's kind of the perspective that I noticed. Obviously, I didn't write it, but this is what I saw and was able to connect. So when we talk about Amazonian jaguar medicine, we're talking about shamanism. And if you understand indigenous culture, shamanism is pretty much the base for a lot of the prayer that goes on. Interacting with animals, your totems, your teachers are animals. So like I said, what I saw in this was the ancient tradition of transformation, which is represented through the jaguar spirit, or the equivalent, which would be the mountain lion.
So it's such a beautiful film, so many beautiful visual elements and all, but I was so much struck with the main character being caught between the two worlds of his grandmother and his sister, right? And how, like, the inner life of what could be healing was being so pushed down. And I know that in many places in the world, there's all different kinds of healing, and here in Rockland County, we certainly seem to, have some issues with people who have mental health challenges and maybe can't get the kind of healing that they need. So I love that this brought out the personal kind of healing that someone may need. Thank you.
Hi. I also think that the mental health aspect of the movie was really profound, and I think you dealt with that so beautifully. But one thing that struck me was I felt like there were so many things about the movie that made me think about Indigenous people. And I wonder why you chose to have the protagonist be Latino and not Indigenous.
Well, in our indigenous communities, we see Latino people as a representation of indigenous communities just as much as any other, what you would consider to be indigenous communities. So it's really, when you deal with the population of people in the Northeast, obviously there's going to be a lot of Latino, Taino people. So we don't really see a difference, from someone who's coming from a tribal perspective. We don't see them as, we're mainland, they're, coming from an island. So that's didn't really strike us as an issue. I felt like it was still representing indigenous people. So.
That's interesting. I've never felt, I've never realized that was, that was the way.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Taino and Arawak people, they would be the same people that you find in Central and Mesoamerica. They're basically from like some of the same stocks in terms of ancestry and heritage. Like I said, you have mainland and you have the islands. There was a lot of interaction prior to even Columbus arriving between the islands and the mainland. So, yeah.
Would you like to speak to this new show?
Yeah.
So basically, hi. So basically, with Puerto Ricans and everyone in the Caribbean islands, there'll be Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, thanks. Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Haitians, and what else? I said Dominicans, right? Before they became who they were, they were Taino Indians. Okay? They were Taino Indians before the Spaniards came over with the slaves. They were Taino Indians that were in the Caribbean islands. So that is the reason why he chose a Puerto Rican, because Puerto Ricans are Taino Indian. Okay?
It was also pretty amazing how, we didn't cast it only Puerto Rican. It was Taino. It was just organic, beautiful thing that occurred. Nishia, Willie, and Lily Nin, who's not present with us tonight, but she played Lupe, came to the table with this incredible talent and all shared this heritage. So it was a really special part of this production experience.
Yeah, and if I could add something else too, at this point in time on the East Coast, a lot of the indigenous communities are very admixed. So, like I said, that's a great representation of who the indigenous people on the East Coast are, if we're being completely honest, you know what I mean, and accurate at this time. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Actually, in the middle again. And then Josh.
Just briefly, having to do with this very interesting question, is that borders are drawn, they're just, they get made. And my husband and I both teach a course in cross-cultural perspectives. And one of the things that we teach every year is this little section on borders. And there's a group from, I think they're Mexican, El Tigres del Norte, is that what they're called? And they sing this song called I Am More American. And they basically talk about how borders weren't there. The Spaniards came, and there's just so much history having to do with colonization. But that they feel in this song that they're more American than any of us white folk. They were here already. Borders just started defining them, defining their areas. So even though it doesn't necessarily come up in your film, it does, in a way, sort of extend out into that conversation about what indigenous is and how truly far-reaching the idea of who came from where when. It's very, the word escapes me, but it just has to do with these, it's like gerrymandering in a weird way. We just get defined by these spaces that are drawn around us by people we might have no idea how they came up with it. There's so many examples of this in history of borders. So, anyway.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that it really was a striking and stunning film, and I loved being so drawn into his mental illness and experiencing that sort of from the inside out. It was so visceral, so real, and his love of nature and the natural world and his essential being was so palpable. Also, the fact that he was trapped in his mental illness and not able to be in what would be the local or real world, which I loved how you all brought it back to Nyack and to the buildings there and the people there playing chess in the square. And so it sort of covers all nations and all people. And especially people who suffer with the challenges of mental illness and trying to fit themselves into the real world without losing themselves, without losing their nature. And so that was really important for me to see, and I really, really appreciate this movie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessie. This is definitely one of our clear intentions is for the healing of nations and unity among people. Excuse me. I'm wondering, Andres, would you like to share what you've been doing and why every Sunday for over half a year?
Thank you. Sure, I wasn't expecting this, but every Sunday for, I think, almost 9 months now, we're trying to rally in Nyack at the Four Corners in support of Palestine and the atrocities that they've been experiencing for decades as indigenous peoples there. And we talk about the borders that have been created. But yeah, so we're trying to just bring awareness to let people know just by standing there. It helps people know by wearing this keffiyeh that it is okay to support Palestine, because I think a lot of times, unfortunately, in this country, around the world, media, politicians have weaponized and made it seem like it is a bad thing. So I appreciate you all having been there a few times as well. And I encourage everyone to do their research, have an open heart, see what is being live streamed with your own eyes. There are beautiful, some of the most amazing people I've ever met are Palestinian in this county. They're suffering greatly. And I think along the lines of this film and what you said and what I believe in and what we all believe in Nyack is you see the diversity there. We are all connected. We need unity, peace, love, understanding, and to speak up whenever there is an injustice. So I hope that we can connect with you all and the community in Nyack, Sean Harris, his family, and connect with each other. And I think together we are all stronger. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I hope we all can pressure politicians to do what is right. And we all know what is right in our heart. Thank you.
Thank you, relative. And, yeah, sure. I just want real quick, since we heard Sean Harris's name, I just wanted to say that our dear friend Judy Harris is with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Oh, she's like, okay. Well, she came early.
She was here.
Thank you for approaching me.
I really don't even need the mic. It's a short question. My name is Colette Fournier. I'm a photographer here in Rockland, America. Ashley, I don't really know you, but I'd like to have more of a connection with you. And as a woman in film and communications, can you just talk a little bit about what your role was in this project? And Brooklyn, much love. I'm looking forward to working with you again. I sent you a couple of pictures that I found of your dad. I don't know if you ever got them.
They're lovely from Spring Valley.
Yeah. I had an opportunity to meet his father at St. Paul's Church when, I can't remember the lady's name who was the reverend at the time, but she had Mr. Demme come and just talk to us, people in the community. And he was just so humble and just so beautiful. I'll never forget that time. And I just happened to take a couple of photographs. Found them recently. I was so hoping you would get them because I really wanted to share them with you.
Thank you so much. It was Reverend Angela, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, so Angela. Anybody remember her last name? I'm so sorry. I'm having a problem with names these days. But she was our pastor at St. Paul's Church in Spring Valley for a good 10 years, I think. Yeah, she's irreplaceable. But please, Ashley, share what you do. Thank you.
Well, a part of this film, I was the intimacy coordinator. I made sure that both parties of the sexual interactions were comfortable and that the scene went well. Hope you enjoyed. I just helped my brother, Brooklyn, over here as much as I could. He had me by his side, and through his journey of his first film, I was there to just help him along the way. Yeah. And I'm doing my own film, but we're still on Mountain Oh, yes, sorry. I did direct a scene as well. The plaza scene, that's where I grew up at. Those are my friends. And we, in the beginning of this whole process of Brooklyn and I doing film, we were doing a short documentary about Nyack and the urban renewal. So that was just a piece about the urban renewal that I'm doing a documentary about. And Will coming into that scene being in turmoil and sadness and going through a lot in the moment, that scene showed some compassion for a man going through something and being able to see him going through what he was going through and having compassion and thinking that he needs some help and trying to help him in the moment instead of pushing him away and throwing him out the door.
Actually, wrote and directed that scene, which is, which is what it is in its own cell, and in my opinion, also just creates all of the foundation, just the way that the end, the final message from Medicine, being on location at the plaza while he's sharing it based on that scene, to me, it deepens everything about the film. So thank you, Ashley.
I'd like to say just, so Brooklyn, I just wanted to say that, you know, truth to power is so important in this county. The things that you've pointed your camera to, the protests that have gone on, and now this feature film, and the two words that come to mind are courageous and universal. There's something, the one character that is throughout the film and wasn't mentioned, it was a little bit, but the land. I mean, the land is really a main character in this piece, and a lot of the cinematography, there were a couple of moments where just tracing the branches of a tree, and I'm sure that, you know, I might have gotten lost in where the dialogue was because I was discovering how trees look and how nature has this power and this poetry that is around us all the time. And I felt that the film almost felt ancient, like it brought us back to the indigenous time when it was just without structure and just man and women and creatures, and then it was also very modern and contemporary. So the fact that the land was celebrated and honored and respected throughout, and also the assault on the land, because it was the discussion of urban renewal, but also just courageous, because talking about mental health is one of the toughest things to do. I've suffered with depression my whole life, and just to say that is so hard, and to point the camera at it, and to have people who everyone knows somebody in their family, or somebody they've grown up with that suffer it, or people oftentimes in their life have mental health issues that are just so hard to talk about. So that you made that such an important part of your first film really talks about how important your filmmaking will be, and the fact also that you created this community of filmmakers so that all these other stories that are woven into this can now find their full expression. So we look very forward to your project, Ashley, and we know how important it is, and I just can't thank you enough for making this film and for inviting me to say a few words today.
Amen. Thank you, Bill.
So one thing that keeps coming up is that the nature angle aspect of this, and it is the one that sort of points forward in a sense. How do we overcome the imbalances that we're seeing between, within our minds, between men and women, between humans and nature. The list goes on and on. And it's reflected in the other movies that you make and all the issues that have been brought up in the discussion. And I think perhaps in the film that we're also supporting tonight, which is Ashley's next film, I wonder if Ashley could address how that film relates to all of this.
That kid?
That kid.
Yeah, well, so we're gonna see a clip. We're gonna transition. Thank you, Matthew. Before we make the transition, I'm wondering, Norris, is there a final word you'd like to offer?
So, as we mentioned, the role that nature played in this film, Lenape have a tradition called Sing, which is the protector of the forest. And a lot of what you're referencing is our reference to Sing, the protector of the forest and all the things, all the living creatures within the forest. And my role in the film kind of is the living embodiment of Sing. So when you're seeing the animals watching, when you're seeing the shots of, it appears like someone's watching the characters, when you see mine, that is a representation of nature, of the forest, of the spiritual aspect of the film, gazing in on the actual characters. So that is that's a very big part of the film, and it's tying directly into Lenape culture.
Miguelito, did you see the watery elephant running through this place right now?
Ay, Dios mío. How could I have missed it, Abuelita? I was caught up looking after a dinosaur porpoise surfing the sky.
Dinosaur purpose, huh? You're too good at this, my handsome young man. What would I do without you?
I don't know, Abuelita. I just don't know. Pero, mira. Look at those elephants who split into two twin teacups and bleed through a crown of thorns. Back into a mighty jaguar chasing little birds for fun.
¿Qué pasó, mijo? You're always so smart. Why would a mighty jaguar chase up somebody for fun?